Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Today we're travelling back to a turbulent past, an age of tension, violence and religious conflict that lasted for centuries. Together we'll explore how relations between Jews and Christians evolved from the early centuries up to World War I. This is a story of misunderstanding, prejudice, discrimination and often brutal violence, but also a story of survival, resilience and hope. So grab your drink, take a seat and let's begin our historical journey. Christianity began as a movement within Judaism. Jesus and his early followers were Jews who worshipped in Jewish synagogues. Over time, however, disagreements over religious interpretation and the acceptance of non-Jews, Gentiles, led to a gradual separation between Judaism and Christianity. One of the earliest sources of tension was the question of whether Christians should follow Jewish laws such as circumcision or dietary restrictions. Paul the Apostle, himself a devout Jew, argued that Gentile Christians did not need to observe these laws, a stance that deepened the divide. One of the most dangerous accusations in history was the charge of killing God. Early Christians began to blame Jews for the death of Jesus, even though the execution was carried out by the Romans. This accusation persisted for centuries and became a pretext for persecution across Christian Europe. Some passages in the Christian Gospels, especially John's Gospel, unfortunately used language that could be interpreted in an anti-Jewish manner. One of the darkest chapters began with the Crusades. Starting in 1096 CE, Christian armies marched from Europe to retake Jerusalem from Muslim rule. On their way, Crusaders attacked Jewish communities in Germany, France and elsewhere. Thousands were slaughtered. Their slogan went, "Why travel thousands of miles to kill infidels when the enemies of Christ live among us?" These massacres, known as the Rhineland Massacres, were the first organized genocides against Jews in Christian Europe. During the Middle Ages, Jews were stripped of many rights in Europe. They could not own land, join guilds, or practice numerous professions. They were forced to live in segregated districts called ghettos, which were often crowded, filthy, and enclosed. At night, the gates were locked, trapping Jewish residents inside. Over the centuries, Jews were expelled from several countries: England in 1290, France in 1306, and Spain in 1492 under Ferdinand and Isabella. One of the most horrific accusations was the blood libel, claiming that Jews kidnapped Christian children and used their blood in religious rituals. These lies repeatedly led to massacres. Whenever a child went missing, Jews were blamed and often executed without fair trial. Martin Luther, leader of the Protestant Reformation, was initially tolerant toward Jews, hoping they would convert after hearing his reformed message of Christianity. When they did not, he turned hostile and wrote one of the most vicious anti-Jewish works in history on the Jews and their lies. In it, Luther called for synagogues to be burned, Jewish homes destroyed, their sacred books confiscated, and Jews enslaved or expelled. Centuries later, the Nazis drew on these writings for propaganda. The Enlightenment brought new ideas of freedom, equality, and human rights. Gradually, Jews began to gain citizenship in a process known as Jewish emancipation. The first countries to grant full civil rights were France in 1791 after the Revolution, the Netherlands in 1796, Britain in 1858, and Germany in 1871. Still, traditional circles fiercely resisted these changes. Despite progress, by the late 19th century, a new form of hatred appeared: modern antisemitism. Unlike older religious prejudice, this one was racial. Even conversion to Christianity could not erase one's Jewish origin. One deadly example was the Russian pogroms, violent mob attacks on Jewish communities starting in the 1880s, killing thousands. In 1903, a fake document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion appeared in Russia, falsely claiming that Jews were plotting world domination. Although completely fabricated by the Russian secret police, it quickly spread across Europe and the US, fueling anti-Semitic propaganda. On the eve of World War I, 1914, Jews in Europe faced a paradox. In Western Europe, many had gained full citizenship and achieved cultural and economic success. In Eastern Europe, especially Russia and Poland, millions still lived in poverty, discrimination, and constant danger. Today, we traced how Jewish-Christian tensions evolved, from the accusation of killing Christ, to the Crusader massacres, to life in ghettos and expulsions, to blood libels and medieval hatred, and finally, the rise of modern anti-Semitism. This painful history reminds us of the devastating price of fanaticism, hatred, and religious intolerance, and of the importance of learning from the past to build a future of respect and peace. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video informative, please like it, and if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Take care until our next episode.